The diplomatic reception continues in the grand chamber of the Concorde vessel, a space designed to accommodate beings of wildly different physiologies and environmental needs. Alina observes how the various species interact, some communicating through color-changing skin patterns, others through subtle electrical fields that make her hair stand on end when they pass too close. "Your first time among the stars?" Xorlac asks, approaching with what Alina has learned is a gesture of respect, his primary limbs folded against his torso. "Is it that obvious?" She replies with a small smile. "Your species has a particular brightness in your eyes when experiencing something new. It's quite distinctive." He gestures toward the viewport where Earth hangs like a blue marble against the black. Most species lose that look after their first few centuries of interstellar travel. Alina studies the alien diplomat carefully. Unlike many of the Concorde representatives who maintain a polite distance from the humans, Xorlac seems genuinely curious. "I'd like to understand something," she ventures. "That incident earlier. Your officer seemed frightened of us. I've noticed others keeping their distance too. Yet your technologies are centuries beyond ours. Surely we pose no threat." Xorlac's compound eyes shift in a pattern that her neural translator suggests indicates thoughtfulness. "Captain Rice, the Concorde comprises species who have followed many evolutionary paths. Some evolved beyond violence naturally. Others, like my own, chose to modify ourselves genetically after nearly destroying our civilization in war. And humans. Humans are unusual." He gestures to a group of Earth scientists eagerly engaging with Concorde biologists across the room. "In a single conversation, I've observed your colleagues express boundless curiosity, competitive instinct, protective concern, and creative problem-solving. The neural pathways required for such rapid emotional and intellectual transitions are rare." Alina feels a chill despite the comfortable temperature. "You make us sound unpredictable." "Precisely why the protocol exists," Xorlac confirms. "Tell me, Captain, in your military training, what did they teach you about cornered adversaries?" "That they're most dangerous when they believe they have nothing to lose." "Indeed. Now imagine a species that evolved as both predator and prey, whose planetary history is defined by cycles of conflict and cooperation, who can shift from peaceful negotiation to lethal action, and back again without psychological damage." He makes a gesture her translator doesn't catch. "The protocol recognizes that humans backed into a corner don't just become dangerous, they become transformative." The conversation is interrupted as a Concorde admiral approaches, flanked by aides carrying holographic displays. "The integration schedule," the admiral announces, handing Alina a translucent data crystal. "Your species has been granted accelerated admission status, most unusual." After the admiral moves on, Alina turns back to Xorlac. "Accelerated status. What does that mean?" "It means, Captain Rice, that some in the Concorde believe we need humans." His voice drops lower, perhaps desperately so. Before she can press for clarification, the ship's lighting shifts subtly, signaling the reception's end. As the delegates begin to disperse, Alina catches fragments of conversation between two insectoid beings who don't realize her translator is active, monitoring the rim worlds. Gone silent, like the others. Can it face this alone? Alina watches Xorlac across the room, deep in conversation with the Concorde admiral. Their expressions are grave, their gestures tense. Whatever brought the Concorde to Earth wasn't mere scientific curiosity or diplomatic outreach. They were looking for something, and somehow, against all probability, they believe they've found it in humanity. The ancient terminal hums as it processes Xorlac's security credentials. Alina watches the alien's multiple limbs move with practiced precision across the unfamiliar interface. Around them, the restricted archive room feels impossibly old, its walls bearing the patina of centuries despite the station's otherwise immaculate appearance. "This information is classified at the highest levels," Xorlac says, his voice unnaturally quiet. "Even among the Concorde leadership, fewer than 30 individuals have viewed these complete records." "Why show me?" Elena asks, unable to tear her eyes from the grainy footage of the Artemis asterisk. A ship history never recorded, carrying colonists Earth had forgotten. Because you asked the right question, he replies, multifaceted eyes reflecting the screen's glow. Not, why are we important, but why are we feared? The terminal completes its authentication sequence. A holographic display blooms between them, showing a three-dimensional tactical map of a star system Elena doesn't recognize. Dozens of ships, most using unfamiliar configurations, surround the comparatively tiny Artemis asterisk. This was first contact, Torlak explains. 2 centuries ago, before the Concorde as we know it existed, the civilizations involved were still territorial, still competitive. Their coalition was fragile. What happened? They demanded the humans surrender their vessel and submit to examination. The human captain. He gestures at a small image of a stern-faced woman with the Namadeg chin visible on her uniform. Refused. When they attempted to force compliance, the humans. He pauses, seeming to search for the right word. Innovated. The tactical display shifts, showing the Artemis asterisk suddenly deploying previously concealed defensive systems. Not particularly advanced technology, Elena notes with professional interest, but used with devastating creativity. The generation ship splits into pre-planned segments, each component executing coordinated but independent maneuvers that confound the attacking fleet. That's impossible, Elena whispers. Generation ships were theoretical concepts during the climate wars. Earth never had the resources to actually build one, let alone with military capabilities. Your historical records were adjusted, Torlak says carefully. The Artemis asterisk project was erased after launch. Political necessity. The display continues its grim ballet. The human ship, despite being outgunned, manages to disable multiple attackers through unconventional tactics. Elena watches with a mixture of horror and pride as her forgotten ancestors fight with remarkable ingenuity. They should have been defeated easily. Torlak continues. Instead, they inflicted significant damage before their main vessel was crippled. Then they scattered in escape craft across 3 star systems. They survived. Many did. What happened next is why the protocol exists. He inputs another command, and the display shifts to show a different encounter. A damaged alien vessel drifting in space, a human escape craft approaching cautiously. These humans had just watched their shipmates die, their generation ship destroyed. By all logic, they should have avoided contact or attempted to destroy an enemy in vulnerable condition. The recording shows the humans instead docking with the damaged vessel, entering with weapons ready but not firing, discovering the alien crew injured and their life support failing. Watch, Torlak says softly. Elena stares in amazement as the humans, despite their own desperate situation, begin administering medical aid to the aliens who had attacked them hours earlier. She recognizes the trade protocols, not so different from those still taught in emergency response training. This same pattern repeated across multiple encounters. Torlak explains. The humans fought ferociously when threatened but showed extraordinary compassion when they gained the upper hand. It confused our ancestors completely. Their psychological models couldn't account for it. It's just basic decency, Elena says, though she understands the cognitive dissonance it would create in species that had evolved or engineered away their capacity for controlled violence. To you, perhaps. To the coalition species, it was revelation. Torlak's voice takes on a reverent quality. They discovered that humans possess something unique, the ability to transition between seemingly contradictory moral states without psychological fracturing. You can be both the most dangerous predators and the most compassionate healers, often within the same hour. The image shifts to rows of official-looking documents in alien script, with frequent repetition of what her translator identifies as variants of human paradox protocol. The protocol began as self-preservation, Torlak admits, Don't kill humans because they're unpredictably dangerous. Over time, as the scattered Artemis survivors integrated with various worlds, it evolved into something deeper. And now, Elena asks, now we need that paradox more than ever. Torlak's eyes shift to a darkened section of the display, a star map showing systems along the galactic rim. Because something is coming that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be appeased, and cannot be defeated through conventional means. He turns to Elena, all four of his hands clasped in what she recognizes as a gesture of grave sincerity. We need humans who can both kill and save, before it's too late for us all. Elena presses herself against the cell wall, listening to the muffled sounds of the insurgents arguing in the corridor. Beside her, Klulteth's chitinous exoskeleton clicks softly as the alien shifts position. You're certain this will work? Klulteth whispers, compound eyes fixed on the crude communication device Elena has assembled from components of their restraints and her ceremonial jewelry. Reasonably certain, Elena replies, making a final adjustment to the miniature transmitter. Earth diplomats have emergency protocols. Our security teams maintain constant surveillance and tracking. The Purification Front chose this location specifically to block communications, Klulteth notes, antenna twitching nervously. Their technology is advanced. Elena allows herself a small smile. So is human paranoia. Our security chief insisted on quantum-entangled emergency beacons in all our jewelry. Old military habit. The device emits a soft tone, barely audible even in the quiet cell. Elena's shoulders relax slightly. Signal sent. Now we wait and plan. Klulteth studies her with obvious curiosity. The insurgent commander recognized you were human. I saw fear in his posture. Yet they still took us hostage, Elena points out. So much for your famous protocol. The protocol says, don't kill humans. It doesn't say, don't threaten them. Klulteth's mandibles click in what Elena has learned is their species' equivalent of a dry chuckle. The front believes humans are being given too much influence too quickly. This entire attack is likely designed to prove that point. Elena turns this information over in her mind. How many of these tests have we been subjected to since integration began? Before Klulteth can answer, the sounds in the corridor change. A sudden increase in activity, followed by shouting. Elena presses her ear against the door, eyes widening as she recognizes the pattern of muffled thumps and short, controlled bursts of energy weapons. They're here, she whispers, motioning Klulteth away from the door. Stand back. The cell door slides open with surprising gentleness. Commander Jackson of Earth's Diplomatic Security Force steps inside, her uniform bearing only minor signs of combat. Ambassador, she acknowledges with a crisp nod. Area is secure. 28 hostiles neutralized, 0 fatalities. Medical teams are treating the injured insurgents now. Elena follows Jackson into the corridor, where she sees the results of the human rescue operation. Insurgent fighters lie restrained but conscious, being treated by human medics wearing diplomatic security uniforms. The precision of the operation is evident. Damage to the surroundings is minimal, focused entirely on communication and weapon systems. You had them outmanned and outgunned, Klulteth observes, following behind Elena. Yet you chose non-lethal methods despite the risk to your own people. Jackson shrugs. Standard operating procedure for diplomatic incidents. Minimum force necessary to secure objectives. As they enter the main reception hall, Elena notices the gathering of Concord officials watching the human security team work. Their expressions, across a dozen different species, share the same quality of intense analytical observation. Ambassador Trelvac, the Concord's senior diplomatic officer, approaches. An impressive operation. Ambassador Reyes, your security forces showed remarkable restraint. They followed protocol. Elena answers carefully, suddenly aware that more is happening than a simple rescue mission. Preserving life is our priority, even the lives of those who threaten us. Indeed, Trelvac's eyes, 6 iridescent orbs set in a crescent pattern focus on her with uncomfortable intensity, just as the Lost Ones did. Alina freezes at the reference to the Artemis survivors. You know about that. I have appropriate clearance, Trelvac acknowledges. Today's events have been informative. The Concord's Integration Committee will want a full briefing. As the ambassador moves away, Alina catches Torlak watching from across the room. When their eyes meet, he gives a subtle gesture that her translator interprets as both apology and confirmation. This was a test, she says quietly to Commander Jackson. They orchestrated the whole thing. Seems likely, Jackson agrees, her voice equally low. Though those injuries the insurgents sustained were genuine enough. If it was a test, they committed to it fully. Alina watches the human medical team stabilizing an injured insurgent whose cellular structure is already regenerating, a biological advantage of his species. They wanted to see if we kill when we had the chance, she realizes, when we had every justification to do so. And the whole Concord leadership just happened to be here to witness it, Jackson adds dryly. Alina scans the room again, noting how the various Concord officials are now conferring in small groups, occasionally glancing toward the humans. Their body language, even across diverse physiologies, communicates the same thing: urgency. Something has them scared, she murmurs. Something bad enough that they're willing to risk diplomatic incidents just to confirm what we'll do under pressure. Across the room, the senior officials are gathering around a secure communication terminal. Their expressions grow more grave by the second. Exorlak breaks away from the group, moving purposefully toward Alina. Captain Reyes, he says formally, switching to the diplomatic address. The Concord High Council requests your immediate presence. A situation has developed that requires human perspective. What situation? A Void Echo scout vessel has been detected in the Proxima Centauri system, he replies, multifaceted eyes reflecting the emergency lights now flashing throughout the station. They've never ventured this close to Concord space before. Alina feels the weight of attention from every alien in the room. And you think we can help with that? She asks. No, Captain. Exorlak answers with brutal honesty. We're certain of it. The question is whether you will choose to. Alina trails her fingers across the reconstructed hull fragment of the Artemis asterisk, feeling a connection to these forgotten ancestors who shaped galactic policy without Earth ever knowing. The metal is cool beneath her touch, its aged surface bearing microscopic pitting from centuries of exposure to space before being recovered and preserved. How many survived? She asks, turning to Exorlak. 837 of the original 3,000 colonists, he answers. The escape pods were designed for prolonged survival. Many reached habitable worlds in nearby systems. The archival chamber shifts its holographic display to show settlement patterns across a dozen star systems. Small clusters of human life signs appear as glowing points against planetary backgrounds, each representing a pocket of Artemis survivors establishing themselves on alien worlds. They integrated with local species, Alina observes, watching as the human signatures gradually disperse and intermingle with other life signs over generations. They didn't try to remain isolated. Another aspect of human adaptability that fascinated our predecessors, Exorlak confirms. Most species instinctively cluster with their own kind when under threat. Humans seek alliances, even with former adversaries. A new tactical display activates, showing footage from what appears to be a primitive body camera. The perspective follows a human in an environmental suit traversing an alien landscape of purple vegetation and angular rock formations. The date stamp indicates this recording is from approximately 6 months after the Artemis incident. This is Dr. Renata Okafor, Exorlak narrates as the human comes into view when she turns toward a reflective surface. She led a group of 32 survivors who landed on Veshta, a frontier mining world. The footage continues, showing Okafor's group encountering a settlement of insectoid aliens, ancestors of Kloteth's species, Alina realizes. The aliens are clearly suspicious, weapons raised, but communication is established through improvised visual symbols. The Veshta mining colony had been abandoned by its corporate owners when resource extraction became unprofitable, Sorlak explains. The remaining workers were struggling with failing equipment and dwindling supplies. Alina watches in fascination as the footage shows the developing cooperation between humans and aliens over subsequent weeks. The humans apply their generalist knowledge to repair critical systems, while the aliens share their specialized understanding of the local environment. 3 months after this initial contact, a solar storm damaged the colony's radiation shields. Sorlak continues, advancing the footage. What happens next became legend among my people. The recording shows Okafor and her team working frantically to repair the shields as radiation levels rise. When a critical component fails, she makes a decision that stuns Alina, manually holding a power coupling in place, exposing herself to lethal radiation to save both humans and aliens in the colony. She sacrificed herself, Alina whispers, for beings who had been enemies mere months before. Sorlak confirms. But the story doesn't end there. The display shifts to medical records and technical schematics. The aliens, grateful for her sacrifice, used their advanced medical technology to save her life, though she was permanently altered in the process. This cross-species medical intervention became the foundation for much of the Concord's integrated medical science. Alina studies the subsequent footage showing Okafor, now with visible alien medical implants, continuing to lead the joint colony. Under her guidance, they transform the abandoned mining outpost into a thriving trading hub that eventually attracts attention from other worlds. When representatives from the early Concord finally investigated the unusual trade patterns emerging from Veshta, they found something unprecedented. Sorlak says, shifting the display to show official first contact protocols being conducted with the mixed colony. A truly integrated society, where the distinction between human and alien had begun to blur. Children were being raised communally, technologies were being merged, and governance was shared. This became the model for the modern Concord, Alina realizes, recognizing similarities to the current political structures. Indeed, the foundational principles of our coalition were shaped by these lost human colonies. Sorlak gestures to a final display, a gene frequency map showing the spread of human DNA across dozens of Concord species over generations. Their descendants walk among us, though few maintain purely human genetics after 2 centuries. Alina stares at the map, understanding dawning. That's why the protocol is so deeply embedded in your culture. You're protecting your own ancestors. Partially, Sorlak acknowledges. But there's another reason the archives remain restricted. He activates a final display showing Captain Chen's last recorded message before her death decades after the initial conflict. The aged human looks directly into the camera, her eyes still sharp despite her wrinkled face. If Earth ever reaches the stars, she says, her voice strong despite her years, remember what we discovered here. Humans possess something rare, the ability to hold contradiction in our minds without breaking. We can fight when necessary and heal when possible. The stars need this paradox. Protect it. The recording ends, leaving Alina speechless before this message from the past. Sorlak watches her carefully. Now you understand why we sought Earth when the void echoes appeared, he says quietly. We need the originals, humans raised in humanity's cradle, who carry this paradox in its purest form. Because something is coming that can't be reasoned with, Alina repeats his earlier warning. No. Sorlak corrects her, eyes shifting to a darkened section of the display. Because it's already here. Alina rubs her temples, processing the implications of everything she's learned. The archive chamber's soft lighting seems to pulse with the weight of history surrounding them. I need to see all of it again, she insists, eyes fixed on the paused image of Captain Chen. Every detail of the aftermath. What happened to the Artemis survivors who didn't make it to Veshta? How did they influence other worlds? Thorlak regards her with what she's learned to recognize as approval. Most officials who learn of this history focus on the tactical advantages humans displayed. You look for the connections. He activates a series of displays, each showing different settlement patterns across star systems near Ta Ceti. The escape pods had scattered widely, some traveling for months before finding habitable conditions. The Listura system received 23 humans. Thorlak explains, highlighting a binary star system. They landed on a world with an atmosphere requiring filtration masks for humans to breathe. The local dominant species, methane-breathing crystalline entities, initially considered them biological contaminants. The display shows tense first contact, communication barriers, and eventual breakthrough. Elena watches, fascinated, as the humans demonstrate Earth farming techniques adapted to alien soil, dramatically increasing crop yields. Within a decade, these humans had transformed agricultural production across 3 worlds. Thorlak notes. But more importantly, they introduced a concept previously unknown to the crystalline entities, which was selective breeding for trait enhancement while maintaining genetic diversity. Thorlak's multiple eyes blink in sequence, a balance between directed improvement and natural adaptation. The Listura had previously practiced only strict genetic purity or completely random mating patterns. The human approach, intervention with preservation of variants, revolutionized their civilization. Another display activates, showing a different group of survivors on an ocean world. These humans had landed in the middle of a territorial conflict between aquatic species. Unable to take sides without ensuring their own destruction, they instead established themselves as neutral mediators. The Marosian Accords, Thorlak explains, became the template for Concord conflict resolution procedures. Structured negotiation with graduated enforcement, another human paradox, both rigid and flexible simultaneously. And Chen. Elena asks, returning to the image of the Artemis captain, what became of her? She led the largest group of survivors, nearly 300, to a world we now call Harmony. They faced the greatest challenges, as the planet hosted 5 competing sentient species already in conflict. The display shows Chen's struggling colony, constantly threatened by local powers, yet refusing to align exclusively with any faction. Instead, they created a remarkable neutral territory, offering medical care, technological assistance, and mediation to all sides. The human quarter on Harmony grew into the first multi-species cooperative settlement in recorded history. Thorlak says, obvious pride in his voice. It became the physical location of the first Concord government 2 generations later. Chen's granddaughter served as its 3rd High Minister. Elena stares at the expanded display, showing the evolution of what began as a desperate human outpost into the political center of a galactic civilization. We didn't just influence the Concord, she realizes. We helped create it. Precisely, Thorlak confirms, which is why the Paradox Protocol evolved from mere self-preservation to something approaching reverence. The core insight, that humans can hold contradictory imperatives simultaneously, became the philosophical foundation of our union. He activates a final display showing the formal ratification of the protocol, now clearly recognizable as the precursor to the modern Concord Charter. Elena reads the preamble with growing amazement. We acknowledge the human capacity for both destruction and creation, for both violence and healing, not as opposing forces, but as complementary aspects of a unified approach to existence. Our mixed societies flourished, Thorlak continues. The human genetic tendency toward adaptable moral frameworks, contextual rather than absolute ethics, spread through interbreeding. Many modern Concord citizens carry traces of human DNA, though few recognize its significance. But the original insight has been diluted, Elena concludes, understanding dawning. The pure human paradox has become rare as it spread and mixed with other species' instincts. Yes, and now we face something that exploits the very stability and harmony we've achieved. Sorlak's expression darkens. The void echoes target precisely those qualities the human paradox protected against: our predictability, our specialization, our evolutionary distance from the capacity for necessary violence. He brings up a new display, real-time tactical data showing a Concorde research vessel adrift near the Saturn system, its systems compromised. That is why Earth's integration has been accelerated beyond all precedent, he says gravely. Not just because we need allies, but because we need humans who still carry the undiluted paradox. Humans raised on humanity's birth world, who haven't lost the capacity to shift between seemingly contradictory moral states. Elena stares at the tactical display, understanding the full weight of what's being placed on her shoulders, on humanity's shoulders. We must inform Earth immediately, she says, already moving toward the exit. Yes. Sorlak agrees, following. Before the echoes realize what they've found in your solar system. What do you mean? A species that carries precisely the trait that could destroy them, he answers. If they understand what humans truly are, they'll stop testing our defenses and commit to full invasion. We have very little time. The Security Council chamber falls silent as Elena concludes her briefing. The holographic display above the central table shows the spread of void echo incursions along the galactic rim. Dozens of worlds gone silent in the past 18 months. To be absolutely clear, says Admiral Cheng, leaning forward in his seat, an advanced alien coalition has been testing us because they believe we possess some unique psychological trait that might help defeat this threat. That's correct, Admiral, Elena confirms. The Concorde species have either evolved beyond or engineered away their capacity for what they call contextual violence, the ability to switch between peaceful cooperation and controlled aggression as circumstances require. While humanity never lost that capacity, observes Dr. Okereke, the Council's senior xenopsychologist. Our evolutionary history as both predator and prey required us to maintain both instincts. Secretary General Vassiliev, who has remained silent throughout the briefing, finally speaks. And these void echoes, what do we actually know about them? Elena gestures to the tactical display. They appear to be a collective intelligence that absorbs or overrides the neural patterns of conquered species. The Concorde has lost all contact with 17 colonial systems in the past year alone. Their expansion pattern has accelerated in recent months, and now they've reached Saturn, Cheng notes grimly. A scout vessel, Elena clarifies, currently observing the research outpost on Titan. The Concorde believes this is merely reconnaissance, but an urgent notification flashes across the display. Elena accepts the incoming transmission, and Sorlak's image appears. Captain Reyes, the alien diplomat, says, his normally measured voice tense. The situation has escalated. The Echo vessel has seized the Titan outpost. All communication with the research team has been lost. The Council erupts into urgent discussion. Admiral Cheng immediately begins coordinating with military command, while Secretary General Vassiliev requests direct communication with the Concorde High Minister. Elena steps away from the table, speaking privately with Sorlak. What aren't you telling me? She demands. There were 38 researchers on that outpost, 19 humans and 19 Concorde scientists. Why target them specifically? Sorlak's multiple eyes shift in a pattern she's learned to recognize as deep concern. The research team was studying human neurophysiology, specifically the brain structures that enable your species to maintain moral consistency while shifting between cooperative and competitive behaviors. You mean they were studying exactly what makes us valuable against the Echoes, Elena concludes, which means the Echoes now have access to that research. They know why you sought out Earth. It appears so, Sorlak admits. The Concorde High Council is concerned. Terrified is more accurate. Elena counters, reading the subtle shifts in his posture. You think they'll target Earth specifically now? Before Sorlak can respond, Admiral Cheng approaches. We're deploying the first response fleet to Saturn. Captain Reyes, given your unique position, I'm requesting you join as diplomatic liaison. Elena nods, already mentally preparing for the mission. I'll need direct access to all Concord tactical data on previous Echo encounters. Granted, Sorlak says immediately. I'll accompany you as Concord representative. As the chamber empties, military and diplomatic personnel rushing to their assignments, Dr. Okereke pulls Elena aside. I've reviewed the neurological data from your briefing. The synapsychologist says quietly. Something doesn't add up. The void echoes aren't behaving like a simple hive mind. What do you mean? Their attack patterns show too much variation, too much adaptation. Classic hive intelligences demonstrate far more uniformity. Okereke displays a comparative analysis on her tablet. And look at these energy signatures from affected worlds. They're maintaining individualized power infrastructures, not consolidating them as we'd expect from a collective entity. Elena studies the data, a theory forming. What if they're not a natural hive mind? What if it's artificial, an imposed network rather than an evolved one? Precisely what I'm thinking, Okereke confirms, but I need more data to be certain. The Titan Research Station, Elena realizes. They'd have direct neural scans of echo technology from previous encounters. If we can retrieve that data, I'll make it a priority, Elena promises, already mentally revising the mission parameters. As she leaves to prepare for deployment, she finds Sorlak waiting in the corridor. There's something else you should know, he says, his voice pitched low so only she can hear. The research on Titan included studies of the Artemis descendants, those with mixed human-alien genetics. Why is that significant? Because preliminary results suggested that even diluted human neural patterns show resistance to echo influence. His eyes lock with hers. The Concord scientists were attempting to isolate the specific human trait that provides this resistance. And now the echoes have that research. Elena concludes, the full implications hitting her. They know exactly what makes us dangerous to them. Yes, Sorlak confirms, which is why this is no longer a reconnaissance mission. It's the beginning of a war for the very trait that makes your species unique in the galaxy. As Elena boards the transport to the orbital fleet station, she watches Earth growing smaller through the viewport. For the first time, she truly understands the weight of the protocol that has shaped galactic politics for 2 centuries. We don't kill humans, because humans might be the only species capable of saving us all. The command deck of the EDS Horizon falls silent as the tactical display updates with real-time imagery from the Titan outpost. Elena stands beside Admiral Cheng, both studying the footage with growing concern. The research facility, once a model of human Concord cooperation, now pulses with an eerie blue-green light. Strange organic structures have begun to grow from its foundations, extending tendrils across Titan's icy surface. Reminds me of neural pathways, Dr. Okereke observes, magnifying a section of the image. They're literally rewiring the outpost. Life signs. Cheng asks the sensor officer. 35 distinct signatures, Admiral, all showing unusual synchronization patterns. Elena exchanges a glance with Sorlak. 35, she repeats, not 38. 3 missing, Sorlak confirms. But which 3? Additional sensor data streams in, and Dr. Okereke's expression shifts from concern to intense focus. These neural patterns, she says, pointing to the readouts. The captured personnel are showing synchronized brain activity, but it's not complete. There are resistance patterns in some of them. The human researchers? Elena asks. Not exclusively, Okereke answers, surprise evident in her voice. Some Concord scientists are also showing resistance, particularly those with. She pauses, double-checking her data. Those with trace human genetics from the Artemis lineages. Sorlak steps closer to the display. This confirms the Titan research. Human neural architecture provides some inherent resistance to echo control patterns. Admiral Cheng gestures to his tactical officer. Can we identify the 3 missing personnel? Working on it, sir. The officer enhances the sensor data, isolating life sign patterns. Based on baseline comparisons with crew manifests, the missing individuals appear to be Dr. Karim, Dr. Chen Liu, and researcher Zelvon. 2 humans and 1 Concord scientist, Elena notes. Zelvon has Artemis lineage. Sorlak adds, his great-grandmother was among Captain Chen's original crew. A communications officer interrupts. Admiral, we're detecting a weak transmission originating from Titan's northern polar region, approximately 60 kilometers from the main facility. Let's hear it, Cheng orders. The transmission is fragmented, distorted by interference, but Elena immediately recognizes Dr. Liu's voice. Not a hive mind. Parasitic network. Can be disrupted at. Individual nodes remain intact after. Separation possible. They escaped, Elena realizes, and they've figured something out about how the echoes function. The transmission cuts off abruptly as a new alert sounds. The sensor officer's voice tightens. Sir, the echo vessel is powering up. Energy signatures consistent with weapons systems activation. They've detected the transmission, Sorlak says grimly. Admiral Cheng doesn't hesitate. Launch Rescue Team Alpha to those coordinates. Tactical, prepare defensive positioning. We need to extract those scientists and whatever data they've gathered. As the command deck erupts into coordinated activity, Elena pulls Dr. Okarik and Sorlak into a side conference. If Liu is right, and the echo network is parasitic rather than a true hive mind, that changes everything, she says urgently. We've been approaching this as a military problem, but it might actually be a medical one. A parasite can be removed from a host. Okarik agrees, eyes widening with understanding. Or disrupted without destroying the underlying neural architecture. Sorlak adds, if the captive researchers could be freed rather than simply eliminated, the implication hangs in the air. The Concord's approach to echo-compromised individuals has been containment, and, when necessary, destruction. The possibility of recovery had never been seriously considered. This is precisely the human paradox in action, Elena says quietly. We're looking for a way to both fight and heal simultaneously. A new alert sounds as the echo vessel launches smaller craft toward the escaped scientists' location. Admiral Cheng rejoins them. The extraction team won't reach them in time, he says grimly. We need options. Elena studies the tactical display, an unorthodox plan forming. The Concorde transport in our bay. It has medical stasis equipment, correct? Yes. Sorlak confirms. Designed for cross-species emergency care. And our shuttle has the experimental EMP weapon designed to temporarily disable echo technology without harming organic systems. Elena continues, turning to Cheng. Admiral, I need to lead a small team down there. If we can extract the scientists and their data, we might gain the key to defeating the echoes without wholesale destruction. Cheng studies her for a long moment. The Concorde has spent decades testing humanity to see if we possess this capacity for nuanced response to threats. He says finally, I believe it's time we demonstrated it conclusively. He turns to his executive officer. Prepare the shuttle. Captain Rice has operational command of the extraction mission. As Elena moves to gather her team, including Dr. Okarik and 2 security specialists with medical training, Sorlak stops her briefly. The protocol exists because of what your ancestors did when faced with an impossible choice, he says. They found a third path, neither simple destruction nor passive acceptance. Elena nods. Let's hope we can live up to their example. As the shuttle launches toward Titan's surface, Elena watches the echo vessels closing in on the scientist's position. This mission will test the very quality that made humans unique in the galaxy, the ability to hold seemingly contradictory imperatives in perfect balance, to rescue and defend, to fight and heal, to destroy a threat while preserving those threatened. The human paradox in action. The observation deck of Harmony Station, hums with anticipation as representatives from across the Concorde gather to witness the historic event. Elena, now wearing the insignia of Coalition Admiral, studies the tactical displays showing the assembled fleet, the largest cooperative force in galactic history. 317 vessels, Torlak notes, standing beside her. 17 Concorde species, Earth forces, and 23 freed Echo ships. Unprecedented. Elena nods, her attention drawn to the distinctive organic curves of the Echo vessels, now flying alongside the geometric precision of Concorde ships and the utilitarian efficiency of Earth designs. Each represents a different approach to the same challenge, and together they create something greater than their parts. Kvex approaches, his movements still carrying the slight mechanical stiffness common to recently freed Echoes. The neural parasite removal process leaves subtle traces in motor control functions that take time to fully reintegrate. The final targeting calculations are complete, he reports, his partially synthetic voice continuing to adapt to individual speech patterns rather than network communication. The control node's defensive capabilities are formidable, but our simulations show an 87% probability of success for the primary mission. And the secondary mission? Elena asks, referring to the more complex goal of liberating the enslaved Echo individuals, rather than simply destroying them. 73% probability, Kvex answers, higher than initial estimates, thanks to refinements in the disruption technology. The disruption technology, a remarkable collaboration between human medical researchers, Concorde neuroscientists, and freed Echo engineers, represents exactly the kind of innovative approach that the Paradox Protocol predicted humans would bring to the Concorde. Neither purely aggressive nor purely defensive, it targets the parasitic quantum links without harming the underlying neural structure of the hosts. Admiral Chang joins them, reviewing the final deployment orders. The human Concorde strike teams are in position, he confirms. The modified disruptors have been distributed to all teams. Once the outer defenses are breached, they'll move in to secure the node control center. Elena feels the weight of the coming battle, not just the tactical challenge but the moral one. The easy path would have been simple destruction of the control node and everything connected to it. The harder path, the human path, seeks to preserve life even while neutralizing the threat. There's something you should see before we depart, Torlak says, leading Elena to a quiet corner of the observation deck. A holographic display activates, showing a familiar face, Captain Chen of the Artemis *, from her final recorded message. But this version continues beyond what Elena had previously seen. The stars need this paradox, Chen says, just as before. Protect it. Then she continues, because someday you will face an enemy that cannot be defeated through simple destruction or simple preservation. You will need both simultaneously, the capacity to fight with absolute commitment while maintaining the equally strong commitment to heal. This is humanity's gift to the stars. The recording ends, and Elena stares at the empty space where Chen's image had been. She knew, she whispers. Somehow she knew what was coming. Perhaps not specifically, Torlak suggests, but she understood the pattern of cosmic challenges, that the greatest threats require both the strength to destroy and the wisdom to preserve. A notification chimes, indicating the fleet is ready for departure. As they move toward the command shuttle, Elena reflects on the journey that brought them here, from first contact to the precipice of a battle that will decide the fate of countless beings across the galaxy. The command deck of the flagship falls silent as Elena takes her position. Representatives from each species stand at their stations. Humans, Concorde members, and freed Echoes working in seamless coordination. All vessels report ready, Admiral, Commander Jackson announces. Elena takes a moment to look at each face on the bridge, the embodiment of cooperation across profound differences. Each species brings unique strengths, but it was humanity's particular gift, the ability to embrace seeming contradiction, that made this moment possible. The Paradox Protocol began as a warning, she says, addressing the assembled officers. We don't kill humans because humans are unpredictably dangerous. It evolved into recognition. We don't kill humans because humans can be both warriors and healers simultaneously. She activates the fleet-wide communication system, her voice carrying to every vessel in the assembled armada. Today, we take that understanding one step further. We don't just avoid killing humans. We stand with them. And they stand with all sentient life, even those who were once enemies. Elena gives the command to initiate the jump sequence, and the massive fleet moves as one toward the coordinates of the Echo control node. We go not just to destroy a threat, she concludes, but to free those enslaved by it. This is the human way, and now it is the way of us all. As the ships accelerate into faster-than-light travel, the stars stretching into brilliant lines around them, Elena remembers the lost pioneers of the Artemis *, how their legacy shaped galactic civilization without Earth ever knowing. Now that legacy comes full circle as humanity leads the way toward a future where the false choice between destruction and preservation is rejected in favor of a more complex, more human approach. The Paradox Protocol has become something greater, a foundation for a new kind of galactic community where the unique strengths of each species are valued, but where humanity's gift for holding contradiction remains a guiding principle. We don't kill humans because humans have shown us a better way to live among the stars.